What up, you guys? Slim here at SlimXTeampurplepanda. Making kind of like a new segment to my, ever-growing videos on my channel. I actually never thought of this, kind of this topic or route to take with the channel. So shout out to Torn Between Two Worlds 6 came up with a really good idea. We're gonna do, if you've seen, I've done card discussions, I've done, deck discussions, I've done one card versus another. Well, we're gonna follow up with that. We're gonna do one deck versus another. So we're gonna have a deck versus deck discussion. And the first one is actually really good. This first one is gonna be X-Sabers versus Six Samurai, and which one I think is better and why. Alright, so let's break it down real quick. Okay, X-Saber are simple, you got your Bogart Knight, you got your Full Helm Knight, you've got your Dark Souls, you've got your Emrys Blades, you've got your what do you call it? You've got your Pashul, you've got your like your alternate winds, you have your full troll, you have your, you have all your crazy shenanigans that you can pull with the deck, and you have the opportunity to create a lot of synchros really fast. Blow up your opponent's back row with Hyunlei, and kind of control most of the board. You have a Gotham Z call, which is like a double reborn. Sync again. Dark Soul searches all your pieces that you need. And the deck's pretty damn explosive, being able to make a lot of different powerful synchro monsters, and that's usually how you win. Six Samurai, on the other hand, are you play Gateway, United, Dojo, whatever it is that you play in that combination. You summon. Usually it's Kageki, get Kagemusha. Make a Shein, summon a Grandmaster, summon a Kazan, add all the cards to your hand off Gateway, draw two cards off United, depending on how many copies you have out on the field. Have your Double Edge, it's just like a double monster reborn. Have your Magatama, which is your answer to Warning, Judgment, a lot of these cards that would destroy cards. It's a counter trap, it's powerful. You have your, your red and blue version, Mizuho and Shinai. You have all your different synchros you can make besides Shin. You can make Barkian, you can make Beast, you can make Trishula really easily. And, Samurais have been dominating at pretty much every event. You'll see at least one in the top 8 or top 16, and they're really good. They've lost a little bit since I lost the other two Gateway, but I mean, other than that, they've been really solid if people haven't noticed. So, Alright, so if we break those two decks down, their main synchro monsters would be for X-Saber, you've got Hyunlei, and you've got Gothams, big Gothams, 3100 level 9. For Six Samurai, you have Shein, and I guess you could say Naturia Barkion, because that seems to be the one that people summon the most. Okay. So if we compare just the synchro monsters, Hyunlei can blow up to 3 back row. Gothams is that giant 3100 that can, you tribute an X-Saber, your opponent loses a card from their hand. Okay, that's pretty cool. You're taking control of the field with Hyunlei, and you're grabbing cards from your opponent's hand with Gothams. With Hyunlei, sometimes you need to go trap stun, or sometimes you have to do something to be able to stop your opponent from chaining back row to, the effect of Hyunlei. And, the same goes for Gothams. When Gothams comes out, you need to be able to stop the warning or bottomless or whatever comes out. And that makes it pretty key to setting up. But when it goes off, it's explosive and your opponent usually loses. Because when you lose your hand, you lose your field control, you pretty much lose the game. Samurais, on the other hand, are so versatile. They make Shein turn 1, set some back row, sit on whatever they have. And it's hard to get around Shein. Shein's 2500, which isn't, like, super hard to get around, but it's, it's more like I'm not only getting around a 2500 point monster, I'm unable to activate a spell or trap because they can negate it if it's not counter. People have had a lot of trouble against Samurais, and I think one of the main reasons is because they don't know how to deal with Shein. And if you compare those two, they make that. They also make Naturia Barkion, which is the one that can negate traps. Just remove 2 cards from your grave. That's really good. I mean, you get Shin, you get Barkian out with some back row set, you're pretty much set, because your opponent can activate a spell, you can negate it, they can activate a trap, you can negate it. I mean, you've got your opponent pretty much backed into the wall. So in the comparison to those two decks, of what's been doing the best, I would say you see a lot more Samurai, and I think Samurai is the better deck. Now, the reason why I say Samurai is the better deck is because Samurai has been played a lot in the OCG, and, a lot of different variants have come from it. But if you look at the numbers, you guys, a lot more Samurai top than X-Saber. X-Saber do top. Billy Brake is one of the best X-Saber players around, but he just quite can't bring it to the end and make, make it and win the championship with X-Saber. I mean, X-Saber really haven't ever won a championship, if I remember correctly. Samurai have won multiple. I mean, I'm not saying the people that ran them were the best players, because honestly they weren't. I've heard a lot of things about people who stack with Samurai, but aside from that, at locals, at regionals and stuff, Samurais have been doing a lot better than X-Saber. It's because X-Saber have a problem. They take way too long to set up, whereas Samurai can go off and set up turn one. It's not that hard to draw a United or a Dojo, or maybe even draw the one Gateway. And it's usually when you go off like that with some protective stuff that you really do control the game. And Sabers are great, don't get me wrong, but they really fall victim to Gravekeeper like no other deck does. They can't activate their Gotham's E-Call. They can't really do a lot against Gravekeeper. And when Gravekeeper run 777 tools, they're not afraid of Trap Stun. They're not afraid of really anything. So it's stuff like that that causes, a lot of confusion of what the better deck is. Samurai, I think, have a better matchup pretty much against everything. They, aside from Frog Monarch, I mean, they really don't worry about other decks, because they're really not that hard to beat. Like, a lot of other decks fall victim to Shein. You negate their main spell and they're kind of lost. You negate their Monster Reborn or their Dark Hole. They've taken a huge minus while you've lost nothing. So I mean, that's what makes Samurai so good. I mean, I've ran them 4 times. I've made them and broke them 4 separate times, so I know what I'm talking about. I know all the damn combos with Samurais except Red and Blue, because I never ran Red and Blue, but I heard Red and Blue's amazing. You OTK with it, but in my clear experience with both decks, I honestly say Six Samurai is better. Six Samurai is better because it's been more versatile this format. They don't take a slow time setting up, and they're explosive. X-Sabers can be explosive, but it takes them a while, and that's the problem, is that the slowness factor is going to get you in the end versus a deck that's really explosive. I played both against X-Saber and Six Samurai back to back when I was playing Gravekeeper, and I have to say that my harder matchup was the Six Samurai, because I had to really know how to bait out Shein. And I mean, aside from that, like when it came to X-Sabers, yeah, Dark Soul did get a couple pluses off me, but I mean, aside from that, when you're not able to, do anything like Gotham's E-Call with Necro Valley out, it's really hard for people to get past all that. So, like I said, in my honest opinion, I think Six Samurai is a better deck. I think Six Samurai will continue to be good even into the next format. Even if a couple things get limited, it'll let them add more tech choices to the deck. So that's what I honestly think, you guys. Once again, this is the first video on, a deck discussion, this deck versus that deck. And I honestly think Six Samurai is better than X-Saber. Leave me comments below. Let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree. If you disagree, tell me why. I've played Six Samurai. I've never played with X-Sabers, but I played against them, and I haven't really had a problem against them. I guess it's just the player. In the end, it's just how you play the deck, and basically how you play the game. So that's all I got to say, you guys. Let me know what you guys think. Leave me your comments below. Continue to rate, subscribe, thumbs up everything. And yeah, just check out this new segment on my channel. Thank you for watching.